Hi everyone, I'm Emily Jashinsky. We have a new show at Unheard called Undercurrents. It's on the Undercurrents YouTube channel, but here's a video that you're going to see here on the Unheard channel from today's episode. Make sure that you subscribe to the Undercurrents channel if you want to keep watching the show. It'll be there in the future. For today, check out this clip of what we discussed on today's show. The true story of Project 2025 is a lot more interesting and complicated than the media narrative. And the media narrative has been strong and sustained for weeks now. Random people who don't really follow politics closely have asked me about Project 2025, which is somewhat amusing because like a lot of people here in DC, I've actually had the full 900-page book for a year. The Heritage Foundation was giving them away and still is. If you actually want to hear a ridiculous personal story about my interaction with J.D. Vance, Project 2025, and the Kamala Harris campaign, I will share what happened this week, crazy story for premium subscribers over on undercurrents.tv. Yesterday, Trump's simmering feud with Heritage came to a head as Kevin Roberts, who we'll actually hear more from in an interview in a moment, announced the project would end as planned after convention season, but that the personnel efforts would continue. We'll talk about what that means in a moment. The Trump team put out a statement basically taking a victory lap, dancing on the Project 2025 grave. Trump, hardly a creature of the conservative movement, feels no particular loyalty to its many foot soldiers, even as those people have, in some cases, risked their careers and their reputations to support him. To be fair, many others haven't, and his beef with the conservative movement has some pretty legitimate origins. But Trump, in this case, is pretty correct that the sustained blitz of attacks against him were working. Project 2025 sounded shady and mysterious, and I really think Democrats pretty brilliantly realized the political potential that it had. Since the 1980s, though, the Heritage Foundation has released a, quote, mandate for leadership document with policy proposals for incoming presidential administrations. Heritage is the most powerful conservative think tank in the country. So those proposals have carried weight with Republican administrations whose key personnel have always rotated from government world to the think tank world and vice versa. And that is very common on the left and the right here in DC. This time around, though, Heritage launched the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, as they called it, which combined the mandate for leadership with an effort to preemptively vet personnel in collaboration with tons of other conservative groups for the next presidential administration. So the goal was to have a clear and specific ideological direction, policy blueprint, and also a stable of people who could enact it. Republicans during Trump's administration realized career workers at cabinet agencies could block and slow walk policy demands from the president that they didn't like. They felt the GOP was wildly unprepared to actually offer policy ideas as well. So the goal was to have these basically ready to go when Trump or DeSantis or whomever took office. Under the leadership of Kevin Roberts, currently the president, Heritage has said it will not take any more funding from the defense industry or big tech. And on the right, that has been a breath of fresh air. Obviously, though, a wish list of conservative priorities will be popular with conservatives and, in a general election, unpopular with many non-conservatives, especially with a gigantic assist to Democrats from the media, which has basically taken their legitimately brilliant talking points and helped construct this huge myth around the project. So two things are true here. One, the media is being kind of dishonest, and two, Heritage is further right than most of the country. So I was able to interview Roberts one-on-one for this show about Project 2025 back at the RNC. Here's what he had to say.
The Biden campaign and Media Matters, I think, initiated all of this, and there will be some more offensive coming from us. But this is the point. Whatever someone has heard about Project 2025, if they've not gone to the website, project2025.org, and actually read it, you can assume that it's false, with one exception. The one thing Media Matters and the Biden campaign get right is that we do want to eliminate the Department of Education. Which is awesome. President Trump has said that explicitly as well. So if I were to make a prediction, whether it's a full elimination of the department or at least a massive reform, which needs to happen on behalf of kids, I think we can expect that to happen. So I'll give them partial credit for that.
Since you bring up labels, what do you think it is about Project 2025? Is it the name? Like, what is it that has made this document, this policy document, intriguing as like a narrative that the media is latched onto?
It's not the name, it's the fact that the policies are, for the most part, policies that Americans agree with wildly. But even more than that, it's that they have never confronted, the progressive Democrats have never confronted such a unified conservative movement. And it's unified not just in those policies, but also in terms of the people who, whether they serve in the Trump-Vance administration, which is up to the president, vice president, or whether they serve in a capacity at the state level, what they're saying is, we, common sense Americans, want to be part of restoring the American dream. And you know, progressive Democrats don't want the American dream to be alive. I think that's what they hate about Project 2025.
It's true, these types of proposals are extraordinarily common in politics. On its website, seeking to debunk myths about Project 2025, Heritage cites what the left-wing Center for American Progress did before the Obama administration. This is literally how think tanks operate, and the big ones always have close ties to the major political parties. It is not shady or weird relative to the standards of Washington, D.C. It's bipartisan and perfectly normal. Republicans seem merely not to have tried building a similar political attack tying, for instance, Obama to the CAP plan. So Democrats pulled off something pretty smart here. Personally, I have a lot of friends at Heritage and I'm pretty supportive of Roberts, so there's no way I can be entirely detached here. He has an ideological direction I think is healthy and matches my own pretty well. But to be clear, that's never stopped me from criticizing Heritage when they were taking money from the tech and the defense industries. And this time, honestly, the left got them, even though Heritage didn't do anything wrong. They're conservatives who believe conservative ideas about the border and immigration and climate change and social issues, so of course they want a presidential administration to have policies that favor those ideas, and then they want that administration to have the ability to achieve them. What's most fascinating to me about Project 2025 is that under Roberts, Heritage really started pushing the traditional boundaries of conservative orthodoxy on issues like trade and the intelligence agencies. In the mandate for leadership itself, Heritage commissioned arguments from new right positions and old right positions and kind of pitted them against each other, had them argue it out. That's in the project and in the book. The sad consequence of Project 2025 might just be that conservatives feel less and less inclined to find consensus with the left, because no matter what they say that's critical of the right, the media will usually tell the story most politically advantageous to Democrats. By the way, Heritage was calling on the Reagan administration to abolish the Department of Education back in the 1980s. That's in this edition of the Mandate for Leadership, and the media is acting like this is some brand new, secret, shadowy plan. So a lot of people are just going to think, if we couple this old position from the 1980s that has been totally consistent with, for example, different ideas on trade, why should we even try? We're going to be misrepresented no matter what. So as we're all groping for ways to bring the temperature down, the glass half full take on Project 2025 is that conservatives are seriously considering taking traditionally left-wing stances on issues they never ever would have before. And now they're toxic to potential partners across the aisle if they have any affiliation with Project 2025. So while it's been an absolutely shrewd and brilliant strategy for Democrats, for the country, it might be a bit of a nudge back in the wrong direction. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to help build the show, you can go over and subscribe on our personal YouTube channel, Undercurrents, or go to undercurrents.tv for the full experience. We also have a podcast version of the show, so if you like to listen on the go, search Undercurrents wherever you find your podcasts. Until next time.